Thanks, Karen. Okay, 2 o'clock. So I think we'll get started with our council meeting. Welcome everyone to our May 10th council meeting. And with that said, I'll call the meeting to order. First item to deal with here, where's Lisa? You with us, Lisa?
Yep.
Okay. First item here is the adoption of the agenda. So I have a motion here moved by Dan, seconded by Lisa, that the agenda for the May 10th, 2021 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. Any questions on that? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll go around with ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest, and this is in regard to the regular council agenda. We will get to that separately for the planning matters, either the public meeting or committee of adjustment. I have none to declare this afternoon with regard to the council agenda. Councillor Yake?
No.
Councillor Hearn?
No.
And Councillor McCabe?
None.
Okay, thank you. So we've got a number of planning matters, 3 zoning bylaw amendment public meetings and 2 minor variance ones. So we'll recess our regular council meeting to move into those public meetings. So I have a recommendation here moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve, that the council of the corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the May 10th, 2021 regular meeting of council for the purpose of holding a public meeting under the Planning Act for Alan and Irma Martin zoning bylaw amendment, Hugh Villa Farms Inc. zoning bylaw amendment, Christian F. Martin zoning bylaw amendment, Victoria McHugh minor variance, and Sarah Wilson and Trevor Roberts another minor variance. Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we're recessed from our council meeting. So I'll just switch over to the public meeting for those zoning bylaw amendments. And I'll call the public meeting to order and ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest again. Again, this is in regard to zoning bylaw 09/21 Alan and Irma Martin, 13/21 Hugh Villa Farms Inc., and 14/21 Christian F. Martin. I have none to declare. Councillor McCabe?
I have none, Mayor.
Councillor Yake?
No.
Councillor Hearn?
No.
Okay, so we'll move right on into our first application. This is zoning bylaw amendment 09/21 for Alan and Irma Martin. The location, the land subject to the proposed amendment is described as Lot 6, Concession 5, with a civic address of 7522 Side Road 3 East. The property is approximately 36.41 hectares in size and is shown on the map in your package. Purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the subject lands to permit a dog kennel. The lands are currently zoned agriculture A and natural environment NE. The subject property is occupied by a dwelling, a barn, and 2 sheds. The applicants are proposing to use an existing 136.75 square meter accessory structure for the dog kennel. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. How is notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property and mailed to the applicable agencies. Additionally, signage was posted on the property on April 16th, 2011.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are you giving us the presentation, or Matthew? There you are. You're looking after this one? Okay, can you give us the update on this one, please?
Yes, sir. So thank you, through you, Chair. Before you today is a zone amendment seeking to rezone the subject lands from agricultural to agricultural site specific. Council may recall that this application was before council at the last meeting, where it was ultimately deferred to render a question period with the applicant. So I'll just do a brief recap for council. So as I had mentioned, this application is to rezone or a zone amendment to permit a kennel in an existing accessory structure. This application is before council as kennels are prohibited in all zones within the Wellington North zoning bylaw. A conformity exercise was completed to ensure the proposed kennel is located beyond 150 meters from any adjacent dwellings or barns. Planning staff can confirm that the proposed kennel is located approximately 159 meters from the closest dwelling and 262 meters from the closest barn. And as part of the kennel bylaw, the proposal is subject to site plan control where the finer grain details will be looked after. And with that said, planning staff have no concerns and I welcome any questions.
Okay, thank you. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Nothing further other than what is on the agenda from Saugeen Valley, no objections, Enbridge Gas, no objections, and R&R Animal Control, no objections. And Rick is with us today in case you have any questions for him.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wishing notice of this decision, the bylaw will be considered at our regular council meeting, which immediately follows this public meeting. Persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must submit a written request. With that, I will open any, do we have anybody registered to speak to this application, Karen?
No, we don't.
Okay, do we have the applicant with us on the line?
I can't tell. They haven't identified themselves and no one asked to speak.
Okay. So I guess we'll open the floor for questions or comments from council. Anyone? Go ahead, Steve.
I guess I have one. Thank you, Mayor, and this is for Rick if he's, oh, yeah, sorry, I see he's still there. It says that this kennel was operating, I guess you could say illegally for a number of years. Do you know how many years exactly, just for curiosity?
I do not. I believe through the rumor mill, it's been at least 10 years.
Wow. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I understand that the applicant isn't here to take questions. Is that correct? Sorry, I came in a little late.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, there's someone on the line, but I have no way of identifying them and they did not pre-register to be moved into the meeting.
Darren, go ahead.
The phone number that they're calling in on is the phone number that is listed as the applicant on the application.
So I can permit them. Okay, so I have moved Mr. Martin now in. Mr. Martin, can you hear us?
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, so he is able to join us. Councillor Burke, do you have a question you wanted to address to the applicant?
Yeah, I actually have a couple of questions and it relates back to R&R Animal Control's letter that Mr. Martin, you're seeking compliance now. And I'm curious as to why you'd be seeking compliance now when you've been running this kennel for a few years now. So that's my first question. And my second question is I still have a really hard time granting a zoning amendment just so that a kennel or operator can be in compliance. I think that we're kind of moving this in the wrong way, but I'll open the floor to Mr. Martin if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. Mr. Martin, do you hear those questions?
Yes. Well, as far as operating the kennel, yes, we were under the impression it is legal to have 10 dogs. So we were trying to operate with 10 dogs, and we thought it was legal that way.
Okay. Thank you. Sherry, did that answer your question?
I guess, yes, in a roundabout way it does. I think that maybe we need to look at it as a council, revisiting this bylaw, because it obviously seems fairly confusing, because it reads that you can have 3 dogs, and then it reads that you can have 10 dogs. But if you have 10 dogs, it's not for breeding purposes, it's for other farm uses.
Okay. So did you have any questions related to the application today other than?
No, I'm gonna leave it. I think I've said my piece.
Okay, Rick? Did you have some comments for us?
I do have a comment. There were 13 dogs on site when I first visited. So that is 3 over the 10 dog limit or on my report.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I guess I'll make a couple comments. I'm not seeing anyone else. I do not a big fan of dog kennels in our community. However, I do think that there is a need for dog raising, and I think of the fact that we have a robust kennel bylaw with significant protections in place for making sure that the dogs are treated appropriately. I think that bringing this and potentially other operations into compliance is our best way to protect the well-being of dogs in our community, rather than seeing them raised elsewhere where there may not be nearly as much protection. So I think the protections we've put in place through our kennel bylaw and licensing process are robust, and we should be proud of that fact and welcome people into compliance with it, much as whether or not they were in compliance previously. So I think from Rick's report, the belief is that we can get this applicant into compliance, and that should be a good thing. I don't think I have anything further. Anybody else have any other comments, questions? So I know we do have the bylaw on our council agenda to be dealt with after the public meeting. If there's no further questions or comments, then we'll move on. So that closes out that application. We'll now move into our next application, which is zoning bylaw 13/21 Hugh Villa Farms, Inc. The location of the subject property, the land subject to the proposed amendment is described as Part Lot 3, East Owen Sound Road, Registered Plan 60R2771, Part 1, 2E, Division 3, Division 4, with a civic address of 7076 Side Road 2 East. The property is 19.66 hectares in size and is shown on the map in your package. Purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the 1.76 hectare rural residential parcel from site-specific agricultural A120 zone to site-specific agricultural A1 zone. Furthermore, this application is seeking to amend the existing site-specific agricultural A120 zone for the retained agricultural portion of the property, 17.9 hectares, to permit the existing horse breeding operation. This rezoning is a condition of severance application B78/20 that was granted provisional approval by the Wellington County Land Division Committee. The consent will sever 1.76 hectare rural residential parcel with an existing dwelling and shed. A 17.9 agricultural parcel will be retained with an existing dwelling and accessory buildings. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. So notice, how was notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were circulated to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, as well as mailed to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on April 15th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. Matthew, are you giving us the presentation on this one? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. Before you today is a zoning bylaw amendment seeking to amend the existing agricultural site-specific zone on the subject lands. As you had mentioned, the applicant has received conditional approval on severance application B7820. And again, the consent will sever a 1.76 hectare rural residential parcel with an existing dwelling and shed from the retained 17.9 hectare parcel with an existing dwelling and accessory structures. So just try to keep along with me. It's a bit confusing here, but through this rezoning, the retained lands would be rezoned from A-120 to A-1, which prohibits any new livestock facilities. Further to that, this zone would permit the existing horse operation to continue in operation. And then the second portion of this rezoning would amend the existing A-120 provisions on the severed parcel to prohibit any new livestock facilities, once again, essentially establishing the A1 zone within the existing A-120. In addition, this particular site specific would recognize the existing MDS deficiency to the existing barn located on the retained lands. So all in all, the application conforms to the zoning bylaw as well as the official plan and applicable provincial policy, and planning staff have no concerns, and I welcome any questions.
Great, thank you, Matthew. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Other than what's been listed, which is from Enbridge Gas, who have no objections, the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, oh, sorry. No,
Okay. No correspondence in this application?
no, sorry. I'm one ahead of you, sorry.
Okay. So the bylaw will be considered at the regular council meeting following this public meeting. Persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must submit a written request. And with that, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments from the applicant and or the public. Do we have anybody registered to speak on this application, Karen?
So I want to back up to the comments. Yes, we did get a comment from SVCA. There are none listed on the agenda. We got a comment from the SVCA with no objections.
Okay. Thank you.
And I believe Jim Hewson. I hope
Yes.
it's Jim is here to speak.
Yes,
Okay, well, welcome, Jim. You able to hear us okay?
yes,
Okay, did you have anything you wanted to add to the application at this point?
I'll answer any questions that you have, Mayor Lennox.
Okay. Okay, is there anybody else registered to speak on this application, Karen? Okay, so then, thanks, Jim. We'll see whether there's any questions from council. So we'll turn to council and ask if there's any questions or comments. Steve, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor, and through you, I guess this is for you, Matthew. Just on the on your report here under the proposal, the last sentence said planning staff did not support the proposed severance application, which severed a second dwelling from the farm operation. Could you clarify that a little bit for me?
Yeah, no problem. So through you, Chair. So this application dates back quite a bit. So I want to say I can't recall which year it was, back when Jessica was with us, so quite a number of years ago, there was an application, a zoning bylaw amendment to permit a second dwelling to be constructed outside the building cluster, where I believe the applicant was looking to expand a horse operation, which didn't work out. And ultimately, planning staff didn't support that application for the dwelling outside the cluster.
Okay, thank you. And if I can continue, Mayor, if you don't mind,
Yep, please go ahead.
I guess this is more for you, Jim. I just actually drove by the property, I guess yesterday. And is it for sale? And so how does that work if we grant this or it's not granted with the property being up for sale?
Well, what I'm trying to do right now is if we obtain the severance, I want to sell the 44 acres, which is the house and barn and everything on it right now. And then my wife Debbie and I are planning on moving on to the front lot, the severed lot, and building a new house there. I'm 67 years old and my wife Debbie's 62 years old. I have chronic back problems and I'm finding that I just can't keep up with the work on the farm here. And we're looking for a smaller parcel where we don't want to leave the area. We've been here for 27 years now. And I love where I live, but I just can't keep up with the work.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate your candor. Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments from council? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So again, we'll be dealing with the bylaw amendment once we resume our council meeting yet today. And that finishes up, I believe, that application. So we'll move on to our next application. So this is zoning bylaw amendment 14/21 for Christian F. Martin. The land subject to proposed amendment is described as concession 14, part lot 16, concession 13, part lot 16 and 17. The property is approximately 104.95 hectares in size and is shown on the map attached in your package. Purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the property to permit a new 557.4 square meter metal workshop and permit a maximum of 6 employees on site. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. How were notices given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property and mailed to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on April 15th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. Matthew, can you give us the presentation on this, please?
Will do. Thank you. Through you, Chair. This application is a zoning bylaw amendment seeking to rezone the subject lands from agricultural to agricultural site specific. The applicant is seeking to establish an on-farm diversified use, namely a 6,000 square foot metal workshop. Further, as the business scales up, the bylaw would permit a maximum of 6 employees. All in all, the application generally conforms to provincial policy as well as the OP and the zoning bylaw. Planning staff have confirmed, the area of operation will not exceed the maximum 2% of the farm. Lastly, the proposal is subject to site plan control where the finer grain details will be looked after. And then with that said, I welcome any questions.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Nothing other than what's listed on the agenda, which is from Enbridge Gas, which have no objections.
Okay, thank you. So the bylaw will be considered at our regular council meeting following this public meeting. Any persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must submit a written request. And with that said, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Karen, do we have anyone registered to speak on this application?
No one registered to speak on the application, Your Worship.
Okay, so I guess we can move on to questions or comments from council. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I have none.
No.
None for me.
Okay. So I guess that brings us to the end of that application. So that would means we can adjourn our public meeting. So I have a motion here moved by Steve, seconded by Dan, that the public meeting of May 10th, 2021 be adjourned at 2:25 p.m. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we're adjourned from the public meeting. And we'll move to the Committee of Adjustment for a couple of applications. So I'll call the Committee of Adjustment meeting to order and ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. So we have the two applications, A07/21 for Victoria McHugh and A08/21 for Sarah Wilson and Trevor Roberts. I have no pecuniary interest to declare. Councillor Burke,
No.
Councillor Hearn,
No.
Councillor McCabe,
I have none, Mayor.
okay, Councillor Yake.
No.
Okay, thank you. So we've got minutes of the previous meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. So I'll say it's moved by Dan, seconded by Sherry, that the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes of April 12th, 2021, A05/21 and A06/21 be adopted as presented. Any questions or comments on those minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll start with our first application, A07/21 for Victoria McHugh. The location of the subject property is described as Concession 4 North, Part Lot 7, Registered Plan 60R2895, Part 1, PR 61R9830, Part 1, and is municipally known as 9391 Concession 4 North. The property is approximately 0.6 hectares in size, and the location of the property is shown on the attached map in your package. Purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from the maximum floor area of an accessory structure. The applicant is proposing to construct a new garage with a floor area of 278.7 square meters. Other variances may be considered where deemed appropriate. How is notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 60 meters of the subject property and as well mailed to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on April 23rd, 2021.
Okay, thank you. Matthew, can you give us a presentation for this one, please?
Perfect, will do. Thank you, through you, Chair. Before you today is a minor variance application to provide relief from the maximum floor area for an accessory structure. The applicant is proposing to construct a 3,000 square foot garage where the bylaw permits a maximum size of 2,000 square feet on a lot of this size. The applicant has indicated the additional space is required to accommodate the family's personal and recreational vehicles, as well as a hobby woodworking area. With that said, planning staff have no concerns with the application as the request is minor, meets the intent of the official plan as well as the zoning bylaw, and I welcome any questions.
Great, thank you, Matthew. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Yes, listed on the agenda is Enbridge Gas with no objections. And we received a correspondence from Saugeen Valley Conservation who find the application acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Any persons wishing to be notified of the decision must submit a written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment. And with that said, I'll open the floor for any comments or questions from the public and or the applicant. Do we have anyone registered to speak on this application? Karen?
So the applicant didn't register, but I do see a Victoria. I'm going to presume it's Victoria McHugh. I'm going to promote her into the meeting and we can just ask her if she wants to speak.
Okay.
Victoria, we can't see you. Can you hear us? You're on mute. and she's gone. So I guess she didn't want to speak.
Actually, you can see her up
I
there.
can see
Karen.
her.
Where?
I
Where
can
did-
see her, Karen.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Victoria. Okay, you're still on
She's on
mute.
We can see you but not hear you yet.
Yeah, you're still on mute. It'll be down at the bottom on the very
There we
left.
go.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, yeah.
Okay.
Did you wish to speak to the application, Victoria?
I think if you have any questions for me, definitely, I'm here to answer. So, go ahead with any of your questions if you have any questions.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Do we have anyone else registered to speak, Karen?
No, we
Okay,
didn't.
then I'll go to questions or comments from the committee then. Any questions or comments, committee members?
I have none, Andy.
No.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so nobody has any comments. All right, so we'll move on to the decision. Okay, so I'll just read off the decision here and then we'll have a vote. So the decision is that the minor variance applied for in application A07/21 for the property described as concession 4 North, part lot 7, registered plan 60R2895, part 1, PR 61R9830, part 1, and is municipally known as 9391 concession 4 North, provide the following relief. Number 1, that the total ground floor area for an accessory structure of 278.7 square meters be permitted, whereas section 6.1.4B of the bylaw permits a total maximum ground floor area of 206.7 square meters. All those in favor? That's approved. Thank you. Thanks, Victoria. So our next application, A08/21, we'll move on to. This is for Sarah Wilson and Trevor Roberts. The location of the subject property is described as part lot 4, concession 7, registered plan 61R11683, and is municipally known as 8170 line 6 West Luther. The property is approximately 5.15 hectares in size. Location of the property is shown on the map attached in your package. Purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from the minimum side yard setback, building height, and the building size requirements for an accessory structure. The applicants are proposing to construct a new 1,031 square meter riding arena attached to the existing barn. Relief is requested to permit a total accessory building floor area of 1,179.84 square meters, a height of 7.62 meters, and a side yard setback of 11.96 meters. Other variances may be considered where deemed appropriate. How was notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to the applicable properties within 60 meters and as well mailed to the agencies. Signage was posted on the property on April 30th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. And Curtis, are you taking this one?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and committee members. As described, the applicants are proposing to construct a horse riding ring and attach it to the existing barn on the property. The property has an existing site-specific zoning going back a number of years, which recognize the existing buildings as they exist. And this, as I understand, was related to a earlier severance of the property. So we've reviewed the applications and we have no concerns for the requested variances. And we are satisfied that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Nothing other than what's listed on the agenda, which is Enbridge Gas, which has no objections.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wishing to be notified of the decision with regard to this application must submit a written request to the Secretary Treasurer. And with that said, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments from the applicant and or the public. Do we have anyone registered to speak in this application, Karen?
There's no one registered to speak, but Sarah Wilson was in as an attendee and I have moved her in as a participant. Sarah, we can't see you and you're on mute. I don't know if you have if you want to speak to the application.
I'm just here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And we don't have anyone else registered, right, Karen?
No, we don't.
Okay. So I'll open the floor for questions or comments from the committee members. Anyone have questions or comments in regard to this application?
I have none, Mayor.
Okay,
I think it
Not
suits the area very well, so.
okay. Not seeing any, so we'll move on to the decision. I'll read that out and then we'll take the vote. So that the minor variance applied for in application A08/21 for the property described as Park Lot 4, Concession 7, Registered Plan 61R11683, and municipally known as 8170 Line 6, West Luther, provide the following relief. Number 1, that a reduced side yard setback of 11.96 meters be permitted for a proposed riding arena barn addition, whereas section 8.2.4D of the bylaw permits 18.3 meters. Number 2, that a maximum floor area of 1,179.84 square meters be permitted for a proposed riding arena barn addition, whereas section 33.112 of the bylaw permits 148.64 square meters. And number 3, that the building height of 7.62 meters be permitted for a proposed riding arena barn addition, whereas section 6.1.3B of the bylaw permits 6.7 meters. And with that, I'll ask all those in favor. That's approved. Thank you very much. So I guess that brings us to the end of our Committee of Adjustment applications. So we'll move on to adjourn from the Committee of Adjustment meeting. I have a recommendation here moved by Sherry, seconded by Lisa, that the Committee of Adjustment meeting of May 10th, 2021 be adjourned. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we're adjourned from the Committee of Adjustment meeting and we'll move back to our regular council meeting. So we'll resume our regular council meeting. I have a recommendation here moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the May 10th, 2021 regular meeting of council at 2:38 p.m. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to dealing with the bylaws that come out of those public meetings. So I have a recommendation here moved by Steve, seconded by Dan, that bylaw number 43-21 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 66-01 being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Wellington North. We read a first, second, and third time it enacted. This is in regard to Lot 6, Concession 5, with a civic address of 7522 Side Road 3 East for Alan and Irma Martin. Any questions or comments on that one? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And our second one, I have a recommendation here moved by Steve, seconded by Dan, that bylaw number 54-21 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 66-01 being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Wellington North. We read a first, second, and third time and enacted. With regard to 7076 Side Road 2 East, Division 3, Division 4, Part Lot 3, east of Owen Sound Road, Registered Plan 60R2771, Part 1, with a civic address of 9851 Highway 6, Huvilla Farms, Inc. Any discussion on that one? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And our last one out of the public meetings, recommendation moved by Dan, seconded by Sherry, that bylaw number 51-21 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 66-01, being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Wellington North, be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. This in regard to part lot 16, concession 14, concession 13, part lot 16 and 17 for Christian F. Martin. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So next up, we have deputation this afternoon. This is Robert Stovall of Stovall and Associates, Inc., in regard to Fran and George Turnbull, 7985 Wellington Road 109 in Arthur, in regard to the municipal comprehensive review by the County of Wellington with respect to the urban center limits for Arthur. So is Mr. Stovall with us, Karen?
He is. I have just moved him in. I'm just wondering, Mr. Stovall, does Fran want to be moved in to speak to this as well?
I don't know. It's up to her. I didn't even know she's here. Probably not unless I make a
Okay.
mistake.
All right. Okay. I won't bring her in then.
So welcome, Mr. Stovall. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. It's good to see everyone. Haven't been in Wellington North for probably a decade or so. I'm here on behalf of Fran and George Turnbull to make what I think is a reasonable request for consideration in the upcoming MCR and possible urban boundary expansion. Fran and George have been long-time residents in the township. And Fran operates a small commercial business in downtown Arthur. When I visited the property several years ago, I was actually surprised that the property, at least a portion of it, wasn't already included in the urban boundary limits, the urban center. The site fronts on 109, and there are a number of non-farm uses surrounding the site. And basically the entire northern part of the property has been converted from agricultural uses. It's a manicured lawn and landscaped area with the house and a garage kind of shed. It's really not the appropriate kind of place that you'd want to see farming activities. You wouldn't want to see an agricultural building set up on that property. It would cause long-term land use conflicts in the area. And the infrastructure is already there. I don't think it's a stretch to think that the site could be easily serviced. So, and there's no environmental concerns with the property. It's clear of environmental constraints from the GRCA. So I just think it's a reasonable thing to consider the property in terms of long-term growth potential within the urban boundary. It makes sense. Farming or an agricultural designation and zone doesn't make sense on the property. And I don't think it's a stretch to extend the boundary to include their lands. So that's about, I set out in a letter, I set out some mapping and some points. And I just hope that council considers it. And if you have any questions, I can certainly try to address them or talk to my clients and come back and address them in the future. But it's a reasonable request, and I know you're going to be undergoing some planning work in the future, and we hope that you include them in the urban center. So thank you. If you have any questions, feel free and fire away.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Any questions from council in regard to this presentation?
I have none, Mayor.
Okay.
No, I'm okay too.
No.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Rob. I mean, I understand, I'm sure you understand that we are going, going to be going through the comprehensive review process, which is a extensive process that will look at forecasted needs for the village of Arthur in future years, and that will help determine what we can or can't do in terms of the urban boundary. So as we work through that process, thanks for making your presentation, but be aware this isn't going to happen overnight, one way or another.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. I know it's a long term. I think the last time that the county went through this was probably took 2 or 3 years to complete. So we understand that, but I also know that there's flexibility within the process. So I think this property has merit for consideration. So I'd just like you to think about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And okay, I guess we'll move on to our adoption of minutes of the council and public meeting. So we have a recommendation here moved by Sherry, seconded by Lisa, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council and public meeting held April 26, 2021 be adopted as circulated. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We don't have any business arising from previous meeting of council today, so we'll move on to items for consideration. Let's identify any of those that you'd like to pull out for some more discussion. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to have a chat about 1E.
Okay, that's the Rec Parks and Leisure Committee.
Yes. 4C.
Okay, just let me catch up to you here.
Sure.
4C, that's the Provincial Emergency Operations Center search capacity roster.
Yes.
Okay.
And then 5B.
5B, that's Wellington North Power correspondence.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any others? I know we have 5B pulled out, Karen, which involves us naming counselors to represent us at the annual meeting for Wellington North Power. Do we have anything else like that we need to pull out for a reason like that?
No, we don't. But the other thing you're going to want to talk about at that point is the shareholder meeting is at 6 p.m. on the same night that we have council at 7.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any other items to be pulled out for discussion? Sherry, go ahead.
4B, C has already been pulled, correct?
I believe so, yes.
4B.
4B, this is parking bylaw?
Yes.
Okay. Any others? Dan or Lisa, did you have any?
No, I think that's got them.
Okay, so let's deal with all the others then. So I have a recommendation moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve, that all items listed under items for consideration on the May 10th, 2021 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll go back to where are we here? 1E. This is the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee. So we have a number of recommendations coming out of that. 1, 2, 2 anyways. So I'll read the first one and then we'll open the floor for discussion. So I'm going to say this is moved by Steve, seconded by Dan, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the minutes of the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee meeting held on May 4th, 2021. And with that, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, I wanted to bring this meeting up that we had with the rec committee for a couple of reasons. It just was a great news committee meeting that we had. The Donald family was represented by Jim Donald, and if you can see in your agenda package, they have generously donated 100,000 to redo the Mount Forest ball, ball field at the old arena. That should be trumpeted all over the municipality. It's a wonderful, going to be a wonderful addition. It's going to be a clay based ball diamond, which we don't have anywhere in our municipality yet. And it's just a huge donation from the Donald family, and they needed a good shout out. And the other reason I wanted just to bring to council's attention as well is the OTF funding that we got, the Ontario Trillium funding for the Arthur Pool. It was just a little over 18,000, and it's going to put up a sneeze guard and a barrier in the pool. So if and when we can open the pool this year, our staff will be well protected as at the front entrance. And then there'll be outdoor showers, which the health unit has recommended for our residents to shower before they jump into the pool. And there's going to be another emergency exit as well, which will probably hopefully, I guess, direct traffic in a kind of a one-way flow, so that we can reduce social distancing down and make it safe for not only the employees that are at the pool, but our residents as well. So just a really great news all around for the rec in Wellington North.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I know we have a separate recommendation to deal with regard to the ball diamond, but any other questions or comments in regard to those minutes? Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, just to Steve, I guess. Steve, did you want to comment on the Bill Moody playground drainage project at all, on how it's going?
Yeah, well, go ahead, Dan. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Well, it was just at the meeting was brought forward that there's been drainage issues there since the park was built. The township has recreation staff and the works department have worked together in putting a new drainage system in there. They're putting down new coverage, and they've been able to drain it out to a stormwater outlet right beside the park. So hopefully that'll make a big difference. You've probably all seen some action going on over there. Big pile of mulch, and just a thank you to both the recreation staff and the road staff for pulling together to try to make this or just to finish this project.
Thanks. Thanks, Dan, for bringing that up. And yeah, a big shout out to the Public Works guys for doing this ahead of schedule as well. And if I could continue a little bit, Mayor.
Sure. Go ahead, Steve.
There's just an update kind of on the arena floor in Arthur as well, and it is going extremely well. Touch wood that through Tom's verbal report, we haven't hit any snags, and we're actually going to be able to use some of the old material as well, so that's great. And I would also say the stone dust that's at the ball diamond in Mount Forest that's getting the new clay base, we're actually going to be able to remove that stone dust and use it on the ball diamonds that are over by the Sportsplex off of Cork. So it's nice that we can redirect some of that into reuse as well.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I just would like to comment too that while it's nobody wants to have these outdoor amenities closed right now, certainly is a good time to get this work done so that when we can reopen them, people will be able to enjoy them. Both, you know, the park and the ball diamond and all those other outdoor amenities, so that all that pent up demand that we know exists out there, hopefully we can get back to using those outdoor amenities. With that said, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to the next recommendation, moved by Dan, seconded by Sherry, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North direct staff to work with Mr. Donald to implement the works associated with the donation at the Ball Diamond at the south end of the Mount Forest Fairgrounds property, as recommended by the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee. And further, the council approve a special 2021 capital project of $30,000 to allow staff to construct improvements that will improve this project but fall outside of the donor's scope. And further, the council directs staff to fund the project from the township's capital infrastructure reinvestment reserve fund. And further, the council name the Ball Diamond at the south end of the Mount Forest Fairgrounds property, the quote, Donald Softball Diamond, unquote, in recognition of the family's donation until December 31st, 2041. And with that, I'll open the floor for questions or comments. Steve, go ahead.
I guess just a couple more comments. Excuse me. I know it's a long procedure with the Donald family to do this, but I wanted to thank them again and then thank our staff as well in working with the Donald family and getting this done. And yeah, it's going to be exciting. It should be done by September of this year. So hopefully look forward to playing some ball on it in the upcoming year or so.
You?
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd first like to thank the Donald family for coming forward with a donation to rehabilitate the Optimist Diamond. But I do have a couple of questions. The deputation back at the February recreation meeting indicated there would be no financial impact to the municipality. Would someone, and I'm not sure who to direct this question to, Mr. Mayor, would someone please explain how we arrived at this point at now approving a special capital project fund of $30,000 for this project and carrying over donated funds for other projects in 2020? It's a tremendous gift and I don't want that to not be recognized. I just want to ensure we're getting it right. Is the resurfacing of the diamond in red clay the best option? My understanding is it's significantly more work to maintain this type of infield surface. So I'll leave it at that. And I see Matt's popped up, so maybe Matt's going to answer my questions.
Matt, are you able to help us?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lennox, the recommendation as it relates to the $30,000 capital ask has to do with installing drainage, as well as the removal of the existing stone dust and the transportation. In discussions with the Donald family, those were two items that were that they didn't want the donation to cover. And the drainage is thought of just as a way of kind of protecting that red clay in the future and just improving the drainage at the Ball Diamond. And the removal of the stone dust is required to allow for the, I guess, the volume of earth to be available for the installation of red clay. Yeah, that's just a little context as far as what the ask is for.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Certainly, it's useful to know what that 30,000 is for. It's really up to council, though, to whether or not they think this is appropriate at this point. Certainly, it's outside of our original budget, but it certainly, in my mind, anyways, represents an improvement that was probably needed there, anyways, from a drainage perspective. So, did you have something further, Councillor Burke, that I forgot?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the resurfacing of the actual diamond in red clay. Like, I understand the drainage, but isn't there more maintenance and more work to prepare these diamonds for games? So it incorporates drainage, but do we not also need some kind of mechanism to water these diamonds, this type of diamond down?
Mike, can you help us with this?
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe go back in terms of what was the approach and what was the ask from the Donalds. The red clay piece came from the Donalds. That was their recommendation. That's what they wanted to support, was transitioning the diamond to red clay. And your questions in terms of maintenance, yeah, it is a different program, Councillor Burke. But I think, and the members of the committee who are sitting in council can correct me if I'm wrong, the consensus was that additional work, that additional effort was offset significantly by $100,000 contribution. And so they wanted staff to move forward with it. There are certainly concerns among staff, and that was brought back to the committee in a report acknowledging that this is a different diamond, a different surface that we haven't dealt with before. But I think it's fair to say that the only reason this is in front of council is that the committee felt the contribution that the Donalds were proposing, and their proposal was for red clay, a red clay diamond, not for $100,000 for whatever we decided. It was, they made that clear that that was where the direction they wanted to go, was that it far offset the operational impacts. I'm sure Councillor McCabe and Councillor Yake can provide their take, but that's the way my interpretation was as it related to attending the meetings and hearing the ask from the Donalds.
Okay. Does anyone, Councillor McCabe or Yake, do you have anything you'd like to add at this point?
I think, excuse me, Mike pretty well summed it all up. I think this is a good project for the Donald and for us. And yeah, it's going to be a new surface, and our staff are going to have to learn how to maintain red clay as opposed to the stone dust that's there. But I do believe that this is going to be, this will accent or accentuate Mount Forest and the ball league in Mount Forest as well. And with that kind of a generous offer, we wanted to open the floor to the Donalds, and like Mike said, it was their want for the red clay, so we wanted to push forward with this, and we thank them very much for their donation.
Okay, Dan?
And I didn't really get the impression from recreation staff where it wasn't brought to our attention about the maintenance and the looking after of the diamond. I know that Tom and Mandy have worked very closely with the Donald family in regards to the donation. And I think had there been serious concerns in regards to the maintenance and operation of a red clay diamond, I think that those would have been brought forward. And I don't remember that discussion happening at the meeting. I know just again, Tom's work with the Donald family seemed to be quite satisfactory.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I'll just add what my minimal involvement in this process too, in that I was involved when the Donald family made a contribution to minor hockey, and Jim Donald approached me at that point to talk about this issue. So I connected him with Mandy to facilitate that. And I don't know the details of the maintenance. I know it is different. Certainly the grooming tools are different for the clay as opposed to the stone dust. But my understanding was, from what limited information I had, was that it should provide a superior playing surface and should potentially have less long-term cost associated with the maintenance of the diamond. But I don't pretend to be any expert. That's just the impression that I was left with. Any other questions or comments? Okay. And again, I'd just like to recognize the Donald family for their generous contribution to not only to this project, but to minor sports as well. Certainly that's been an important part of the Donald family's life. And it's nice to see them contributing to the community and I think it's great that we recognize them through that. So with that said, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll move on to 4B, in regard to amendments to the parking bylaw. So I'll read the recommendation here, moved by Sherry, seconded by Lisa. That the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report CLK 2021-14 being a report on the amendments to bylaw 5000-05 being the parking bylaw. And further, that council authorizes the mayor and clerk to sign the bylaw to amend bylaw 5000-05 parking bylaw. Open the floor for questions or comments. Go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, so my questions are for Karen, and just wanted to clarify that this is sort of a housekeeping, and if she could highlight anything that's new on that.
Yeah, this is a housekeeping bylaw. So in the full bylaw, the schedules pertain to each municipality, but this is a County of Wellington bylaw. And the schedules, other than some wording on Schedule H, where we're changing it to taxi and stand, the rest of these are really just in the definitions and in just some wording. So it truly is a housekeeping bylaw to keep in compliance with the Highway Traffic Act. And the vehicles for hire now are also included under taxis. So there's no specific alterations to the schedules as they pertain directly to Wellington North.
Okay. Any other questions or comments in regard to that report? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 4C. This is the Provincial Emergency Operations Center Search Capacity Roster. So the recommendation here, moved by Lisa, seconded by Steve, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report CLK 2021-15 being report on Provincial Emergency Operations Center PEOC Search Capacity Roster. And further, that council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to sign an agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario, as represented by the Solicitor General, that authorizes the Township Director of Legislative Services / Clerk, Karen Wallace, to assist the Provincial Emergency Operations Center as per the terms of the agreement. And with that, I'll open the floor for questions or comments. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, I just wanted to give a great big shout out to Karen for volunteering her time unselfishly for this. I'm hoping that she doesn't have to join them, but it's wanted to, like I said, just give a shout out and really appreciate that you're doing this and doing this for our community and doing it for the health of Ontario's people, residents in general. So thanks very much for doing this, Karen, and best of luck with that. It's be quite a performance to go through, and thanks for doing it.
Thank you. It's really a development opportunity. But I did look at the Ontario Fire Map Friday, and astoundingly, there's only one fire in Northern Ontario this year, right now on Friday. Interestingly enough, it was near Sandy Lake, and flooding has really been, I mean, if Minto hasn't flooded, probably nobody has a flood issue this year. So I may not be called. It's just if they exceed the capacity that they have, but yeah, it would be a good development opportunity.
Can I keep going, Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Wow.
So if there was an emergency, like you'd have to pick up your stuff and leave and go to where the site is, or how does it all work, Karen?
Yeah, no, what would happen is, like at the province, they monitor that stuff all the time. So and especially with COVID, but normally what would happen is the provincial employees, a team would go where needed in terms of just monitoring and things like that. And so as they're out of the office, this is when the surge capacity comes in, and it would really be watching the media reports, watching where the hot spots are or the wet spots are, and then calling those municipalities to get updates to feedback to the provincial team. So I wouldn't believe it's all work that you can do from your location here.
Wow. Very cool.
Other questions or comments?
Very good.
Okay. Again, thanks Karen for volunteering. Just seems the amount of time we've meet over the last year or so in terms of emergency operations, we should be getting good at it, right? So thanks again for stepping forward. I'll call the motion then. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to 5A. This is in regard to Wellington North Power. Correspondence. So I'll read the recommendation. Moved by Steve, seconded by Dan, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive correspondence dated April 28, 2021 from Wellington North Power, Inc. regarding the 2021 annual shareholder meeting. And further, that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North appoints the following persons representing the township at the Wellington North Power annual shareholder meeting to be held May 25th. And then we need to insert names in there. So with that, I'll open the floor for questions or comments. I would also draw your attention to the fact that the meeting is scheduled for 6 p.m. when we are scheduled to have a council meeting start at 7 p.m. on the same day. So we'll have to, the chair of that annual meeting will probably have to try to expedite the process, get it done quickly. And so we'll have to talk to that person. And with that, I'll open the floor for questions or comments or volunteers. Steve.
That's what I was going to do. Not really too many comments, but I can volunteer to be one of the three for that meeting. The rec meetings go by pretty quick, so I think I can help this meeting fly by quickly as well.
Well, given his reputation, I may have to get Councillor Yake to chair that meeting because I'm told that he expedites things along quickly.
Speed is my thing.
Other questions, comments, volunteers? Lisa?
No, I'm just commenting that I could volunteer.
Okay, thank you. Sherry, is that a manageable timing for you?
I can, couldn't get on last time, so that's why I'm kind of sitting back. I can volunteer to do it, yes.
Okay.
But I wasn't able to get into the meeting last time, so.
Well, we'll try and make sure we have that tested and checked out beforehand.
Perfect.
Thanks for reminding us. To be honest, I can't remember that long ago. So again, thank you for the reminder. Any other questions or comments in regard to that?
No.
Okay. So we've got three volunteers, Councillor McCabe, Councillor Hearn, and Councillor Burke, that we'll insert into that recommendation. If there's no further comments, I'll call for a vote on that. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Welcome aboard, everyone, to the annual meeting for Wellington North Power. Okay, so I guess that finishes our items for consideration. We'll move on to a notice of motion. Do we have any notice of motion this afternoon?
I have none.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not seeing any volunteers, so we'll move on to community group meeting program report. Anybody have anything? Dan, you go ahead.
Yeah, just last meeting, you had asked about an update in regards to North Wellington Healthcare. So I have a short update here. So most of you have probably read or heard about the fact that the current president and CEO of Wellington or North Wellington Healthcare has retired, Steve Street. Steve's been with, he spent his entire 34-year career in healthcare, and he's been with North Wellington Healthcare for the past 10 years. So we'd like to obviously thank him for his leadership. He's done a great deal of work and put in a great deal of effort in regards to the redevelopment here at the Louise Marshall Hospital, as well as the building and construction of the Groves Hospital in Fergus. There's been a group has been hired to try to get a new CEO and president in place this summer, so that there's some transition time with Steve, and since he leaves at the end of August. So not a whole lot of time, but that group is working to get a new president and CEO in place. The redevelopment at the Louise Marshall at the hospital continues to move forward. On May 3rd, the new emergency area was handed over to the hospital. A number of activities need to take place before the space is available to be used for the patients. That includes implementing and testing the many IT and emergency systems, the completion of staff orientation and training, installation of furniture and equipment, and certainly a great deal of deep cleaning. The move-in dates are tentatively scheduled for July 13th for the emergency room, July 19th, and July 19th to the 30th for the ambulatory care and oncology department. And just thanks to the team at the hospital, the contractors that have worked so hard during the COVID situation, delays caused by finding asbestos in the old building. And it seemed to be every week there seemed to be something happening that wasn't helpful to the project. But with all that going on, the completion date's only been moved a few weeks, and the project looks like it's going to come in under budget, and which is a major accomplishment on a project of this size. And plans are being made to try and hold some sort of a COVID-friendly grand opening celebration. So stay tuned for that. We will see how that plays out. And a couple of other things that are on the plate are the lack of physician recruitment seems to be a real concern, has been raised by the board along with the chief of staff at the Louise Marshall Hospital. The board's asked the physician recruitment committee for a report, and I think that we'll ask to have one sent to council as well, since the municipality does participate in council or participate in physician recruitment. Steve sits on the committee as a council rep, and I sit on the committee as the board rep. And last but not least, the annual general meeting will be held virtually on June 22nd, 2021. So that's an update as to what's happening and what's going to be happening up there.
Okay, thanks very much, Steve, or sorry, Dan. It sounds like there's a lot going on, and certainly it's amazing that this project is moving ahead as quickly as possible, given the challenges of the last year and for our healthcare partners. And just want to take the opportunity to shout out to all those frontline healthcare workers and all the work that they do and have done for us and continue to do during these difficult times. So if you have an opportunity to pass that along to those folks, Dan, please do so.
I will do. And with this being Nurses Appreciation Week, I think if any of us has the opportunity to say that or say thanks to a nurse or a healthcare worker, then obviously we should take that opportunity. But I will certainly pass that along from the mayor and council.
Thanks, Dan. Anybody else have anything they'd like to report on? Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just wanted to report that I have a couple meetings coming up, both the Mount Forest Chamber and the Arthur Chamber this week, and they're, in my mind, they're just not any meeting. These are meetings that I've been looking forward to since I began as council's liaison to the chambers. The Mount Forest BIA is participating in the Mount Forest Chamber of Commerce meeting, and the Arthur Chamber of Commerce and the Mount Forest Chamber of Commerce are having a joint meeting, and to learn from each other and learn what they can do better, etc. They actually have both letterheads on the agenda. So, I mean, for me, this is just a wonderful, wonderful week. Everybody's working together, the Mount Forest Chamber, the Arthur Chamber, the Mount Forest BIA. The Arthur BIA has, of course, just met with the Arthur Chamber, and they're working with the Horticultural Society, like, just very pleased. And I want council to know that.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Anybody have anything else they'd like to chat about this afternoon? Okay, I just wanted to give a quick update. I know we had a couple of items on our agenda with regard to Wellington North Power, but I just wanted to also let you know that despite the challenges of the last year and COVID, we still had a profit within Wellington North Power, but you'll hear more about that at the annual meeting. And while it wasn't as high as we had hoped, it certainly is still in positive territory. And also wanted to let you know that every 5 years, our local distribution company goes through a rate application process to the Ontario Energy Board, and Wellington North Power just completed that. And so we're successful in getting appropriate rate structure. And the board was very complimentary of the work that our Wellington North Power staff has done in terms of managing and controlling costs over the past number of years, and in an almost unprecedented manner accepted the costs presented almost exactly from our application, which usually the board makes adjustments. So I think that's a testament to the hard work done by Wellington North Power staff to contain costs and continue to deliver the excellent services our residents have come to expect. So as a shareholder, I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. So I don't have anything further. I'll go around. Is there anybody else who has anything for today? Okay, so we'll move on then to bylaws. We have a number of bylaws today, and I think we will deal with them fairly quickly with one resolution. So moved by Dan, seconded by Sherry, that bylaw number 50-21, 52-21, 53-20. Is that supposed to be 21, Karen? Should that be 53-21?
Just taking a look here, just a sec. Is that 50, 52, 53? No.
In the agenda, it says 53-20. Should that be 53-21?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, so I'll start again. The bylaw number 50-21, 52-21, 53-21, 55-21, 56-21, 57-21, and 58-21 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Any questions or comments on any of those bylaws? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Cultural moment. Just bear with me for a minute while I look that up. Perhaps we should give Councillor Hearn the opportunity to present that, since she should be most intimately familiar with Heatherton.
Oh, you can go ahead, Mayor Lennox. My house is not in the picture, even though it was built in 1850. It somehow escaped it.
Okay, just bear with me for a second here. Okay, here we go. So our cultural moment is the hamlet of Petherton. Petherton was once a thriving community at the corners of Side Road 9 and Highway 6 and extended north for over a mile. Located 4 miles northwest of Arthur in the former Arthur Township, and like many rural hamlets, it had its beginnings in 1860 when a church was built. The Spark family donated the land and the South Arthur Baptist Church was built along with the Petherton Pioneer Cemetery. The church was dismantled in 1892 when a new one was built in Kenilworth. The post office, the first in the township, was established in 1869, and after moving its location several times and having had several postmasters, closed in 1914. There were 2 blacksmith shops over the years, and the last one closed in 1914, and the building was bulldozed in 1950 when the highway was widened. At one time, a chopping mill was situated on 8 acres of property, and a steam engine provided the power. The water for the boiler came from the creek at the back of the mill. A railway station was built in 1872 when the Toronto, Grey, and Bruce Railway established their line through Petherton. Over the years, the cemetery fell into neglect, and it was restored in the fall of 1977 by descendants of the pioneers buried there. At that time, they cemented the surviving grave markers into a cairn, and a historic plaque was placed. Money was donated by local families, and the Arthur Township Council looked after the work and supplied extra money for the restoration. During the restoration, many of the buried stones were found, 30 in total, and they marked the graves of people buried from the old Baptist church that had once stood on the site. These stones dated back to the 1860s and are now lying in a semicircle. However, due to the age of them, many of the inscriptions are illegible. A plaque with the following inscription has been placed at the cemetery. In 1860, several Baptist families in the area built a church and established the cemetery known as the Petherton Pioneer Cemetery. Blythe, Edwards, Landon, and Spark families were a few of the pioneers of the area. By the 1870s, Petherton had become a thriving hamlet with a population of 155. Petherton was an agricultural community, which also consisted of several houses, 2 hotels, 2 blacksmith shops, a post office, a carpenter, 2 stores, 2 carriage makers, a chopping mill, and a kiln for making bricks. That was submitted by Penny Rankin for Wellington North Cultural Roundtable. That's your cultural moment for May 10th. Okay.
Interesting stuff.
Yes.
Lisa, you would be one of about 5 people that live there now.
Yes, and the stories are pretty interesting, some of them. There were stories of gunfire back and forth in the day, and you know that there were 2 houses that were torn down, and even when we put posts in for where I keep a goat and rams out in front of our property there, we kept hitting all these various bricks and hard things. Like, it was really, really difficult work to do. So I don't know what was there, but
Yeah, Petherton's gone through a few variations. Even in that story, the number of things that were built and then removed is remarkable. Okay, we'll move on to our confirming bylaw. So I have a recommendation here, moved by Sherry, seconded by Lisa, that bylaw number 59-21, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North at its regular meeting held on May 10th, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That brings us to adjournment. And a recommendation here that the regular council meeting of May 10th, 2021 be adjourned at 3:29 p.m. All those in favor? That's carried. We are adjourned. And even though we're adjourned, I would draw your attention to the meeting notices and announcements on the list. So we have the Aquatics Ad Hoc Advisory Committee on May 18th, 7, the Wellington North Power Annual Meeting at 6 on the 25th, and then followed by a council meeting at 7. And then our first council meeting in June is June the 14th at 7. Is that right, Karen, at 7 or at 2?
The regular county council meeting on June 14th is at 2 o'clock. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
Okay,
And also not listed on there is the June 2nd special council meeting, and that's at 2 p.m.
okay. Okay, great. So we're officially adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Great week, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Cindy. Yep, bye-bye.